there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm doing my weekly reading wrap up from July 8th to the 14th. This past week I read a total of 8 books, which I think is great. I read a combo of romance as well as some mystery thrillers. I also wanted to say a thank you to you guys because since filming my last videos last week, I have hit over 1,000 subscribers and that just means so much to me, and I wanted to say thank you and welcome to all my new subscribers. So I will link all these books down below and let's get right into it. The first book I have to talk about is I Want You Back by Lorelei James, and this is the first book in the Want You series. This is about a retired NHL star named Jackson, and he has returned to his hometown, I think of the Twin Cities, and he has to kind of reunite with his ex-girlfriend named Lucy, and they share an 8-year-old daughter, and he hasn't really been involved in their daughter's life up until this point because he had been so involved with his career. But now that that is behind him, he is more focused on being a dad and being in her life. And meanwhile, he is also really interested in getting back with Lucy because they have since broken up and he really misses her. And so it is their romance as well as Jackson kind of discovering who he is and what he wants to do with his life post sports. And we get to see their daughter kind of follow in his footsteps and try hockey for herself. You guys know me, I love second chance romances, so this had a lot of promise, but this was based on something I don't love, and that is cheating, which I don't mind in my books, but I don't love it when it's not addressed correctly, and I just don't feel like it was really addressed. I feel like Jackson wanted Lucy to get over it, and so that's what broke them up initially years prior, is he cheated on her, and he just used his career as an excuse, and I don't feel like they really tackled the problem and they kind of glazed over it and moved past it, and I just didn't love that. And so for that reason and for several other little things, I gave it 3 stars. The next book I have to talk about is The Night Before by Wendy Walker, and this one just came out a month or 2 ago, and I've read Emma in the Night by Wendy Walker and I thought it was just okay, but The Night Before I absolutely loved. This is about a woman named Laura who is in her late 20s and she has a really nasty breakup, and so she moves out of New York City and moves in with her sister Rosie, who Rosie is married, she has kids, she has basically the perfect life, whereas Laura has a little more of a messy situation. But she moves in with Rosie and determined to kind of turn her life around and figure her stuff out, and she wants to be more like Rosie, and so she signs up for an online dating site and goes on a blind date. And Rosie discovers the next morning that Laura never returned home from her date, and she's pretty worried for Laura as well as worried for her date because of Laura's past, and she's worried what Laura is capable of. And so we're seeing through 2 different perspectives, 2 different timelines. We're seeing Rosie after she discovers her sister to be missing, and then we're seeing Laura the night of her date, the hours leading up to the disappearance and kind of what happened to her or her date. And this one I found so good. It was really twisty, it kept me captivated the whole time, and it was a really quick read, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. The next book that I have is an ARC, and that is The Marriage Trap by Cheryl Brown, and this one comes out July 30th. And this is about a married couple named Carla and Jason, and they've been married for 12 years and they have 2 kids together, and their marriage is kind of on the rocks and Jason's business is headed towards bankruptcy. Carla's dad has a lot of money and is willing to give Jason a loan, but Jason has his pride and he really doesn't like his father-in-law, so he doesn't want to take the loan. But he is kind of forced into it, and his father-in-law has conditions with the loan, so he agrees to it, but he has to abide by all these conditions, and it kind of further tears apart the marriage. And there's twists and turns along the way, and this is kind of just an insight into what their marriage is and all the craziness that is inside their marriage. And I didn't love this one. I kind of saw the secondary twist coming from like 10 miles away. And I appreciate like what the author was trying to do, but I just didn't love this one, and so I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. The next book that I have is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and this one just came out at the beginning of July, and I absolutely loved this one. This is about a young woman named Jules who is desperate for money. She just broke up with her boyfriend, she lost her job, and lost her apartment, so she's kind of in limbo with everything. She sees an ad in the paper that an apartment complex is in need of an apartment sitter. It has really good compensation, so she agrees to do this job, and it ends up being at this really famous building called the Bartholomew, and it's really well known for a lot of things, and she's really surprised that she's offered this position and it pays really well, but it has some weird caveats. There's a lot of rules to being in the apartment, and she's paid in cash every week, and just things seem a little fishy, but she needs the money so bad that she agrees to do it. And at first she's really enjoying it. She meets other apartment sitters in this building, but then weird things start happening. I think her first or second night there, she hears a scream in the night, and then one of her friends in the building, who's an apartment sitter, goes missing, and no one really takes it seriously, not even the police. And she starts to uncover things about this building and about what's going on there, and she starts to not feel safe. She knows she needs to escape in order to not be killed. And this one was amazing. It was really twisty. It definitely was a mystery for the majority of the book, where we're uncovering the secrets of the past. And like Riley Sager's previous novel, The Last Time I Lied, this one has a lot of her researching things, and she uncovers like a lot of past history, which I really like. And then towards the very end of the book, we get a really fast-paced thriller. And this overall was really creepy and atmospheric, and I just loved so much about this, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book I have to talk about is Faking Miss Right by Claire Kingsley, and this is the first book in the Dirty Martini Running Club series. And this is my first time reading this author, and I really enjoyed this book. This is about a young woman named Everly, who she does not have a really good dating life. She's had really unlucky times in love, and so she's kind of decided to put dating on the back burner. Everly loves her job. She's a personal assistant to a really famous businessman named Shepard Calloway, and they have a really good professional relationship, but he's pretty cold, and he always dates the same kind of woman who's after his money. And when Shepard breaks up with his most recent girlfriend, he discovers that she's dating his dad, but his dad is going through some personal things of his own, so he doesn't want to break the news to his dad that his new girlfriend is his ex-girlfriend. And so he decides to get a fake girlfriend to kind of trick his dad and trick his ex-girlfriend. And he asks his assistant, Everly, to be his girlfriend and to move in with him. And of course it's crossing some lines because she's his employee and she's going to be sleeping in the same bed as him. And so this all becomes really complicated and the feelings develop between them. And this was so good. It was really heartfelt. It was funny, lighthearted. I just loved everything about it. And I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. And I cannot wait to read about Everly's 2 other best friends in the remainder of the series. The next book I have to talk about is another arc, and that is The Escape Room by Megan Golden, and this one also comes out on July 30th. This is about 4 business executives who work on Wall Street, and they all go into an elevator to go to a meeting on a Friday evening, and they're all pretty annoyed that they have to go to this thing because it's their weekend. And it turns out they have to participate in an escape room event, and they're stuck in this elevator and crazy things start happening, and they realize that it's really serious and they need to escape this elevator. So we're seeing that perspective as well as the perspective of one of the employees who works for the same company, and we're seeing kind of her path of how she started with the company and all these crazy things that are happening to her. And it kind of goes back and forth, and you're kind of wondering how they intersect. And this was definitely more of like a thriller in some aspects. Like you kind of know what's going to happen. It's kind of a revenge plot as well. And I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book I have to talk about is Making Faces by Amy Harmon. And I had seen this on Goodreads just randomly, and it's available through Kindle Unlimited. So I decided to give it a try because so many of my Goodreads friends had rated it really highly. And this is definitely a more serious contemporary with a romantic element to it. And it's about a group of teenagers, specifically 3 different teenagers. There's Fern, and she is kind of more awkward and not traditionally beautiful. And she's really a great person though. She loves to write, and she hangs out with her cousin Bailey all the time. And Bailey is the same age as her, but Bailey has a incurable disease. He has muscular dystrophy, and he is stuck in a wheelchair and he'll never walk again. And his dad is the coach of the wrestling team, and so he's really into the sport even though he can't do it, and he's close to all the players, specifically 5 of the players, and specifically Ambrose, who is kind of the head of the team, and Fern has had a crush on him forever. And while they're seniors in high school, they go through 9/11. It happens when they are seniors in high school, and it really impacts all of the students. And Ambrose decides he wants to join the army after he gets out of high school, and he convinces 4 of his teammates on the team to join him, and they all enlist in the army. But right before Ambrose leaves for boot camp, he shares a kiss with Fern, and it kind of confuses them both, and he leaves for overseas, and he's still thinking about her. And something really bad happens while he's overseas, and he comes back almost 2 years later, scarred physically and emotionally, and he's pretty messed up from what he's seen and what's happened. And he has no idea that Fern's been waiting for him all along. And it is his growth story, her growth story, also about Bailey, and it is a love story. So it's about so many different things, and this one tore me apart. It was so emotional. I cried through at least half of it, but it's so good as well, and I think it taught a lot of really good life lessons, and I gave this one definitely 5 stars, and I can't wait to read more by this author. The last book that I read is Those People by Louise Candlish, and I was really excited to read this because I loved her previous novel, Our House, and this is another domestic suspense novel. And this is about a group of people who all live in the same neighborhood, and a new neighbor moves in on their street, and his name is Darren Booth, and he's kind of a jerk, and he doesn't follow any of their rules, and he plays loud music at night. He sells all these vehicles out of his house without a permit. He's doing all this construction. He's just being like the worst neighbor ever, and everyone has a reason to hurt him, and they're all plotting like what do they do about this new neighbor. And someone ends up dead on their street, and everyone points the finger at Darren. But the police think that something else might have happened, and it's kind of just going from there. And this I found to be so slow and so boring. It was nothing like Our House, which I loved that book. I gave it 4 stars. This one, nothing even happened really for the first third of the novel, and then nothing surprised me. It was so slow, so I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. So those are all the books that I ended up reading this week. Like I said, I will link them all down below, and I'd love to hear if you guys have read any of them, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye!